It begins with a question most people never ask. Who owns the land beneath the sea? Not just the shorelines or castles or rolling countryside, but the seabed itself. The waters that surround Britain, the winds that power her turbines, the deep earth beneath the moors. And in that question lies one of the monarchy's oldest and most misunderstood sources of power. Because while Buckingham Palace may symbolize tradition and Balmoral romance, it is the Crown Estate, vast, ancient, and quietly evolving, that now defines the monarchy's most enduring wealth. And it is also at the center of a slow-burning conflict that touches on property, protest, climate policy, and public trust. This is the story of how royal finances, once shrouded in reverence, now sit squarely in the crosshairs of a changing world. Welcome to Crownverse. Subscribe now if you haven't already, and join us as we explore the invisible crown behind the visible throne. Let's begin. For centuries, the wealth of the crown was directly linked to land. From vast rural estates to the commercial centers of London, the monarch's dominion stretched far beyond ceremony. But over time, and particularly by the 20th century, that relationship began to shift. A deal was struck, a constitutional evolution. The reigning sovereign would surrender the profits from their lands to the government, and in return receive an annual payment to support their duties. Thus was born what we now call the Crown Estate, a public asset managed independently but inextricably tied to the monarchy's name. This estate is vast. It includes commercial properties like Regent Street and St. James, farmland across England and Wales, and perhaps most controversially in recent years, the seabed surrounding the British Isles. Through that seabed, the monarchy, by name, if not direct control, now finds itself at the center of an environmental and economic debate that cuts to the core of modern Britain. Because as the country pivots toward renewable energy, particularly offshore wind, the Crown Estate holds the key to access. Energy companies must lease the seabed in order to construct their turbines. Those leases come with fees, and those fees, while not paid directly to the monarch, form part of a system that eventually funds royal activity through what's known as the sovereign grant. It is a complex structure, often misrepresented, frequently misunderstood, but increasingly scrutinized. In a time of rising energy bills, environmental urgency, and growing public skepticism of elite privilege, the optics of this arrangement have changed. No longer is it simply about tradition. It is about perceived fairness. Who benefits when Britain goes green? Who controls the terms of progress? And is a centuries-old land arrangement still appropriate in an era of democratic accountability? These questions have only grown louder in recent years. Environmental groups have begun to challenge the idea that the seabed, the shared natural resource, should be subject to corporate bidding wars for the benefit of a royal-tied institution. Some have accused the Crown Estate of inflating fees or restricting competition. Others simply point to the symbolism. Why, in an age of ecological urgency, are decisions about clean energy still routed through the legacy of monarchy? The palace, for its part, has largely stayed silent, and rightly so. The Crown Estate is technically independent. The monarch does not set fees, does not control leases, and does not pocket the profits directly. But perception, in matters of monarchy, is everything. For a public already wary of royal expenditures, the idea that the crown is indirectly profiting from wind energy as families struggle with heating costs has begun to stir unease. And the sovereign grant itself remains a point of contention. Under its current model, the grant is calculated as a percentage of the Crown Estate's net profits. In years when those profits soar, often due to commercial real estate or energy leases, the monarchy receives a larger payment, While some adjustments had been made to prevent excessive increases, the structure remains fundamentally tied to the success of an estate the monarchy no longer truly controls. That contradiction of symbolic distance and financial proximity is at the heart of the issue. Royal defenders argue the system is fair. The monarchy surrendered its land income in exchange for constitutional neutrality. The government administers the estate, and the royal family is funded for its public role, not its lineage. Furthermore, surplus profits beyond the grant return to the treasury, benefiting the public purse. But critics counter that the modern monarchy still enjoys vast private wealth through the duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall, through untaxed inheritances, through opaque trusts, and that the crown estate structure reinforces a hierarchy of privilege incompatible with democratic values. And here lies the deeper tension. Because these are not just financial disputes, they are philosophical ones. Is monarchy, in the 21st century, meant to represent continuity or equity? Should the sovereign remain aloof from modern economics, or be held accountable for the institutions that bear their name? And when the monarchy intersects with matters of national energy, environmental stewardship, and land access, where does symbolism end and responsibility begin? Some believe the system is working, that the crown estate's success supports public spending, and that the sovereign grant, though occasionally controversial, has provided stability and transparency to royal funding. Others see a monarchy insulated from scrutiny, a system where historical advantage still dictates modern control. And in the middle, the climate crisis looms larger each year. Britain has set ambitious targets for reducing emissions. Offshore wind is a cornerstone of that strategy. But if access to seabed leases becomes too expensive, too opaque, or too politically charged, those efforts may slow. Delays in green infrastructure could mean higher costs, missed deadlines, and growing public resentment. If the crown estate is seen as an obstacle rather than a facilitator, even unintentionally, the backlash could be severe. Already public opinion has shown signs of shift. While respect for the monarchy remains high in many circles, recent years have seen a more critical tone take hold, particularly among younger generations. Transparency, fairness, and climate alignment are not optional ideals, they are expectations. And as with so many institutions, the monarchy finds itself caught between tradition and transformation. It is a delicate balance. Too much change, and it risks eroding the mystique that sustains its soft power. Too little change, and it may appear detached from the very nation it symbolizes. In that context, environmental disputes over the crown estate are not technical issues. They are existential ones. They ask, what kind of monarchy do we want? One that endures because it adapts, or one that fades because it cannot? The crown is no longer merely a relic of history. It is a participant in real-world structures with real-world consequences, whether through its symbolic alignment with the state or through its entanglement in financial systems designed decades ago. The institution is now being asked to justify its presence, not just through ceremony, but through impact. And that may be the defining challenge of King Charles's reign. As a monarch long known for his environmental advocacy, Charles has spoken passionately about sustainability, regeneration, and the spiritual bond between land and people. But how will those ideals be reconciled with the financial architecture that now supports his institution? Can a monarchy, still tethered to ancestral landholdings, champion a truly green agenda? Can it be both steward and beneficiary? Or will it need to surrender not just land, but legacy in order to survive? The future of the monarchy may not be decided by scandal or succession, but by structures like the crown estate, by how well it navigates the moral economies of a warming world, by whether it can embody service rather than ownership, and by whether its fortunes are seen not as privileges, but as public trust. That trust, once lost, is difficult to recover. But if managed wisely, it could become the monarchy's greatest asset, not in pounds or acres, but in purpose. And in a world asking hard questions of all its institutions, perhaps that is the only currency that truly endures. If you found this exploration thoughtful, balanced, and worth watching, don't forget to subscribe to Crownverse. We go beyond the headlines, past the gossip, and straight into the structures that shape royal power. Like, comment, and stay tuned, because the next story may not be in gold or silver.